The Fed15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a fiduciary, fee-based financial planning firm serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed by our host are their own and do not reflect the views, policies, or position of Raymond James. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. Serving Those Who Serve is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services, Inc. And now, here are your hosts. Dan Sipe serves as a branch manager for Raymond James Financial Services and Serving Those Who Serve, and Katelyn Murray is a financial advisor through Raymond James Financial Services and Director of Advisory Services here at Serving Those Who Serve.
Welcome, everyone, to the Fed15 podcast presented by Serving Those Who Serve. We are back again. Each week, as you know, we discuss the latest news and info that Feds need to know in 15 minutes-ish or less. So whether you're a seasoned federal employee or just starting out in your career, Fed15's got you covered. So grab your coffee, energy drink, green juice, whatever, kick back, and we will tell you what you need to know but might have missed. We are your hosts. I'm Dan Sipe, and I am joined by the exceptional, extraordinary Katelyn.
Thank you. Thank you for that intro, Dan. Yes, we are back bringing our feds the info that they need to know. Are you excited for spring to start? It's coming. It's right around the corner.
Well, yes, because as you know, we're track people. So now it's the beginning of outdoor track. Because, at the high school level, and you're from the north, you have indoor track because we have winter. And
right.
As I mentioned, my kids' coach, they just finished up their state meets and racked up one state championship. And then my son's team, where he coaches, his thrower did not win gold, but won silver. However, the thrower was completely unseeded, so they weren't supposed to score at all. So by taking the silver medal, they scored 8 points. The team won the team state championship. Would you care to guess what the exact margin of victory was?
What was it?
It was 8 points.
So
now, yes, cool. There were plenty of other guys on that team that went above and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But this young man doesn't have this breakout moment. Grab those 8 points. So very proud pops right now. They got some nice feature in the local newspaper. So it's just really cool seeing them give back to the sport that gave them so much. And so now it's on to outdoor track. And any minute, Katelyn, it's Olympic trials, which means we've got Olympics.
Do you have the date for when they start? Do we know exactly when they're starting?
The Olympic trials?
Yeah.
I believe they are in April.
Oh, okay.
Don't quote me on that, folks. Don't send me hate mail because they're in March.
Yeah.
Okay.
To be fair, it's not an Olympic tracking podcast.
No, I love this stuff, but I love my Feds more. So I spend my time reading Fed stuff.
For sure.
I really do. And you'll notice that I'm not in black, but I'm not in pink either. So I can't reveal my sources. I've heard a few things, little buzz off the hill, that there could be some movement on getting a deal done to make sure that we don't have shutdowns here. So cautiously optimistic with this one, because again, I know podcasts are supposed to exist outside of space and time, but by the time this goes up, we either will or we will not have had a shutdown. So here's to hoping that it's not. Now we have some pretty neat stuff today. I'd like to think we always have neat stuff. Tell us about that, Katelyn.
We do. We have some interesting topics to cover today. So Dan is going to give us a really great flyover on eligibility for FEGLI, which is something that can be confusing for some of our feds, and kind of understanding, the different things that come along with adding or dropping FEGLI, things like that. So Dan's going to get into the nitty-gritty there in a bit, but we have a really interesting article on the blog this week on the best dates for federal employees to retire in 2024, 2025, 2026, and even 2027. So we're casting a wide net with this one. If you're kind of thinking that may be within your window to retire, I would definitely encourage you to go check out that article in full. But essentially, we did an article a while back on the best dates to retire in 2024. And it was really well received. And we actually had a response from a reader who was interested in seeing the best dates up to 2027. Because often our feds are, sometimes people come in and they're like, I'm going to retire on June 30th of 2024 at exactly 5 p.m., 4:59 p.m. And that's when I'm out the door and I'm never coming back, right? And then we have other folks who are, they really enjoy their work. They really, find their role fulfilling, and they could retire as early as 2024, or they could wait 3 more years. Then we've got our folks who are on the cusp of 62, who are looking to stick it out to get that 1.1 times pension multiplier. And it's helpful kind of to have that foresight on maybe what the best date to anchor in on could be. So we responded. Obviously, you asked, we answered. That's what we do. And so we wrote a new article kind of covering best dates through that window. So the importance of picking a good retirement date is something we should kind of discuss before we give you those exact dates. So the end of the month, typically really good time to retire, really popular time to retire, because the first FERS or CSRS pension payment starts on the first day of the first month after the month in which a Fed retires. So if I retire on December 31st, my pension payments can start the very next month. Whereas if I'm retiring in the middle of a month, I then have a gap, right? Now, if I can retire on the kind of second caveat to that, other than just retiring at the end of a month, if I can manage to retire on a Friday that's also at the end of the month and also happens to be at the end of a 2-week leave period, then that is kind of like the golden goose of retirement dates, because, you're going to get the additional leave and you'll kind of ties everything up neatly in a bow. So if you are the type of person who can't put a book down until you reach the end of the chapter because you don't want to put the bookmark halfway through the chapter, like me, that would be kind of the equivalent of that as far as selecting a retirement date. So with that kind of ado, there's actually 3 such dates in 2024, if you saw our other article on that. So there's 3 Fridays that are at the end of the month and also at the end of a 2-week leave period. It's May 31st, June 29th, and November 30th. Okay. So those are your 3 kind of golden goose dates in 2024. Now, obviously, December 31st, also a great date to retire. There's a reason it's the most popular date for feds to retire. End of a year, closes everything out. Easy peasy. I will say, if you're looking to kind of manage income for some potential advanced planning strategies like Roth conversions, retiring at the end of the month could maybe not be the best idea, because you're going to get your last paycheck beginning of the next month, which is a new tax year. And so you're going to get your leave payout, you're going to get your last paycheck and all of that in the new year. So if you're trying to kind of control taxable income so that you can do Roth conversions, this advice may differ. If you have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to that, you might want to reach out to ask STWS at stwserve.com to get some clarification there. But best dates for 2024, December 31st, obviously, May 31st, June 29th, November 30th. Best dates to retire in 2025, obviously, December 31st is on the list. December 31st is going to be on the list for all these years. But in 2025, it's going to be January 11th, May 31st, and October 31st that you want to look at. In 2026, January 9th, May 31st, October 31st, and in 2027, January 8th, April 30th, and October 31st. So all of those dates are obviously on the blog under the best dates for federal employees to retire in 24, 25, 26, and 27. So you can check it out there if that's sort of within your retirement window. Be thinking about the date that you may retire. Be sort of planning those things in advance. And of course, at STWS, we never want anybody to go into submitting retirement paperwork and kind of do that retirement transition without guidance. So if you need help, if you need guidance, you can read all of the free content that we put out on the blog. But if a one-on-one consultation would be helpful to you, feel free to shoot us an email and ask STWS at stwserve.com.
And, just to kind of put a little cherry on that, folks, one thing just to remember, if you pick a day that's not the end of the month, you're going to have a little bit bigger gap between your last paycheck and your first pension check, which is not necessarily the end of the world.
Right.
Okay. But just be aware that that's a component. And if you don't, fully understand how that works, again, as Katelyn so eloquently put it, hit us up at ask.stws@stwserve.com. Happy to help you there any way we can. A great flyover on that, Katelyn. Folks really love those best days. We're happy. And thank you. Thank you to our reader who said, hey, would you do this? If we're covering something and you want more, okay, best way to get it is to ask us. We have no resistance for that. Okay, you ask us.
Totally agree.
We're going to try and do it. So thank you for the members of our audience that are doing this. Let us know. We'll do our best to accommodate, because we see the world as a series of concentric circles. There's a universe, then there's our audience, then there's the group that's in a little bit tighter. That's our community. We want to keep building audience and community. So if you're in the audience, there's something you need, you let us know. We'll try and do it so we can help you and bring you even closer into the community. So yes, let's talk a little bit about FEGLI, because, it gets overlooked a lot. And it's, I get it. Nobody wants to talk about dying. Nobody wants to talk about life insurance, anything like that. But it's important enough when things go bad. So hopefully nobody ever needs it. Nobody ever needs their group life insurance, because everybody lives to a ripe old age and has plenty of money and that type of thing. But sometimes things don't go according to plan. So we want to make sure that none of our feds are going off of anecdotal information that might not be the best. So quick flyover here. FEGLI, pretty much all civilian feds can get it, except if they're employed by corporations that are overseen, for example, by the Farm Credit Administration. And, in some instances, you will have organizations that have they have an additional coverage in there. But generally speaking, if you're on the GS scale, you're probably going to be eligible for FEGLI. Also, unless you're in a temporary position like a seasonal postal service person, or interestingly enough, if you're an overseas teacher that is in that role.
Interesting.
One thing to remember, open seasons for FEGLI and open seasons for your health insurance couldn't be more different. Okay, open seasons in the FEGLI program generally only happen if a change has been made to the program. So about every decade or so, decade and a half, FEGLI will review its rates. And sometimes they'll go down because, generally speaking, as a human race, we're living longer, not shorter. When they do that, they have to give everybody who opted not to take it the opportunity to take it through an open season. So, for example, the last one, Katelyn, was in 2016. That wasn't yesterday. Okay, my baby girl who's got her master's and a JOB was a junior in high school. So that was not yesterday. So they don't happen very often. Okay, once you're hired, you're automatically enrolled in the basic, which is your salary, rather than the next highest 1,000 plus 2,000. We'll come back to that in a minute. And you have 60 days to elect the optional coverages, which would be A, which is flat amount of $10,000. B is a multiple of your salary up to 5 times. And C, which is multiples on spouse and children, multiples of $5,000 and $2,500. You can go up to 5 times each. So a spouse could have $25,000, child could have $12,500. If you're wanting to get in or add outside of an open season, you have to have a qualifying life event. Examples would be marriage, birth of a child, divorce, death of a spouse. But interestingly enough, not retiring from government. Okay. You can drop or reduce your FEGLI at any time, as long as you're enrolled.
Right.
But
right.
I'm going to put this out there as an axiom. If you've got FEGLI Basic, I think it's a good thing to carry through your whole career, and I'll tell you why. Because it's a fixed cost over the course of your career. And when you're younger, they sweeten the pot. So remember I said it's your salary rather than the next highest 1,000 plus 2,000, unless you're under 35, because then it's all of that times 2. So if you're a young Fed, it's double. So you're getting more bang for your buck. Now between 35 and 45, that gradually ratchets down to the 1 multiple. So it goes down by 10% a year during that time. Now here's the thing that a lot of people miss. When you've carried this, and you've carried it for at least 5 years prior to when you retire, you're going to be eligible to get 25% of it for free in retirement. And so, if you're making $100,000 a year, that's $25K that you've got. So I'm going to say, be very, 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 very careful about what you drop. Okay. And I will go so far as to say, don't drop FEGLI Basic if you have it. And if you're thinking about it, hit us up at Ask STWS, STWServe.com. I have no axe to grind. Katelyn has no axe to grind. Benefits Ben has no axe to grind. Ed Zerndorfer has no axe to grind on this. We'll give you the straight skinny on why it might be good to hang on to it.
Yeah, definitely agree. I was working with a Fed actually this week who unfortunately they had already dropped basic, and so they weren't able to carry it forward. I know, it hurt me too. But yeah, it's all right. They're going to be in a good situation regardless because they've done a good job of prepping, but totally agree that, that's something that you want to, if you have the basic, I would advise you to, well, not advise you, but I would encourage you to consider keeping it. Gotcha. For sure.
And the other thing is, folks, you're going to be approached by outside vendors. So I'm going to give you a quick little cheat sheet. Okay. If you're young, if you're under 35, your FEGLI might be fairly competitive with what else might be out there. If you're above 45, that's where it might be competitive to look at outside coverage for just the options if you are a non-smoker and at least average health. But even there, you want to be careful. You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So if, for example, you're a smoker, you're not going to, in my opinion, you're going to have a tough time beating FEGLI. Okay. If you have a health condition, and we tend to pick them up as we get older, then you're probably better off in FEGLI. So all I'll say is it could be worthwhile considering it. Be judicious. And again, if you have any questions, we're happy to help you sort that decision out. That certainly is not our bailiwick. We work with it, but it's not a main thing that we do. But we're certainly happy to help. So never throw away the basic.
Agree.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's all the time that we have for today, but we will be back next week. You know it, to bring you all the latest updates that you need to make informed decisions about your career and financial well-being as a Fed. Tell them where they can find us next week.
And be sure to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button here on our YouTube channel, or if you're listening on Spotify so you never miss an episode, please remember, share it with your friends and colleagues.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We love to hear people who reach out to us and tell us, I found you through the podcast. I'm like, That's great. For more information on the topics covered in today's show and more, be sure to check out our blog at blog.stwserve.com. While you're there, you can subscribe to our newsletter, The Weekly Serving, to get all the latest news for Feds delivered straight to your inbox every single week.
And don't forget our complimentary webinars every single week, live Q&A, nothing like them. A couple that you'll probably want to eyeball that are coming up when you're listening to this one. Check out our tax planning for Feds. That's on March 12th from 11 until 2. And understanding Social Security. That is a super popular one. That's on March 14th from 1 until 4. So check them all out. Sign up for one, sign up for all. Your future self will thank you.
I think that's going to do it for us this week, folks. Thank you so much for listening to the Fed15. I am Katelyn Murray.
And I am Dan Sipe.
And we will see you next week. Take care.